Today we're heading south from Banyuwangi, continuing on our East Java journeys, our adventures into the island that's right next door to Bali, in a place that's quite accessible if you're already in Bali on holidays, and a place that I think is a little bit misunderstood and perhaps deserves a little bit more love. So let's get stuck in today as we go south of Banyuwangi and see what there is. This southern road out of Banyuwangi is actually known as Jalur Selatan, or the southern route. And there's really only two ways to get out of Banyuwangi and then across the rest of Java, and that's on the southern route or the northern route. The northern route is the one that most transport takes when they're going long distances, because it hooks up with a toll road that leads all the way to Jakarta. That's only a very new invention. Toll roads have only been in that part of the world for about a decade now, and it's shortened travel times considerably. Now, for the average visitor to this place, there is quite a few things to see along that road as well. There's a place called Tumbak Sewu, which is one of the most incredible waterfalls you'll ever see, which has actually become a bit of a tourist attraction over the years in this part of the world. But today we're going to go somewhere a little bit closer and not so far afield as Tumbak Sewu. We're going to go to a place, first of all, called the Djawatan. Now, I've seen it on social media, local social media, not like influencer stuff, and it looks pretty cool. Let's check it out. I was just driving along this road down south and I came across this building, which is just a beautiful, beautiful building, old building. I've got no idea what it is. On the outside of it, it says radio station, so I don't know if it used to be an old radio station or something like that. It has a Chinese shrine out the front in there, and then that's what it looks like behind. It looks like some sort of factory. It's interesting, this whole area coming down this road, this southern road, I'm seeing a lot of old colonial structures and old colonial buildings, and it looks like it might have been an area of intense industry back in the day, in the colonial era, which is quite interesting. The other thing I'm seeing a lot of is Chinese Indonesians, and Chinese Indonesians have been closely linked to the trade which happened back in the colonial period. They were always the traders, and they still are the traders, and they turn up in some areas that you just don't expect. Like, I'm in some sort of weird town south of Banyuwangi, and there's a lot of Chinese Indonesians here still trading. It's pretty cool, I reckon. Get a load of that view. Isn't that a good one? Except for the power lines. That wasn't why I stopped though. Why I stopped was I was coming along here. I'm going to go across here. I was coming down the road, and on my right I saw this huge stone bridge, and it looked suspiciously like a rail bridge, but I know I'm nowhere near a rail line. And I thought, I better keep an eye out to see if there's any more signs of this. And then as I'm coming along, down the side of the road, you've got these two old railway tracks. And it appears that the railway track comes all the way from Banyuwangi down to the southern coast and was used by the Dutch during their colonial times to extract resources and ship them off overseas. And I've just seen this out of the corner of my eye. There's a little sign here, PT KAI, and that is the railway company of Indonesia. But it looks like people have built on the land, because even that thing there doesn't look like the railway company. Someone's built a shop here. It looks like all the land's been taken over by locals, which happens to the railway company all the time. I've noticed that all the old abandoned railway lines are always built on by people, and over the years the railway companies had to shift them off, and sometimes they have to sort of pay them to move off their own land. It happened, I know, in a few places in Garut in West Java. So yeah, that's a really interesting piece of history there. I think you find that these sorts of rail lines occur all throughout Java. Java was crisscrossed in the colonial days by so many more rail lines than exist now. Not all passenger, a lot of freight, which doesn't really occur anymore. In fact, even a lot of those industries, such as timber and rubber, aren't as big as they used to be. A lot of those industries and processing don't really occur so much here in Java as they used to do. Not sure why. So this place is called Djawatan Magical Forest. It's all about the trees here. Apparently the trees are amazing. So if you love trees, you'll love this place. I actually really like trees. It's a funny thing to say, isn't it? But I just love them. Look at those things. Aren't they cool trees? They've got ferns growing out of the side of them. Pretty cool. It's just like a garden really, isn't it? But the trees are, I don't know, a particular type of tree which seem to spread out, and you'll find that the branches and the leaves sort of clump together, and they, as the wind blows, they have a bit of a canopy that sort of winds and weaves as the wind blows it. I reckon that might look good from the air as well, wouldn't it? A few little horse-drawn carts called dokar around here. There's a few different words for dokar or horse-drawn carts in Indonesia. One of them, like I know in Bandung, we would say delman, not dokar, and I know in the Gillies they say cidomo. This tree doesn't seem to so much have ferns growing out of it, but also pieces of grass or other plants. In fact, all around here there's different types of plants growing out of these trees. A really interesting historical fact about this place is that these trees were planted by the Dutch colonists back in the day, and this area served as a timber yard. So around this whole area they were cutting down trees and shipping off lumber. These trees were planted by them for shade. This was a lumber yard of sorts. And also that railway that we saw used to run through this area as well. And it's interesting because I have seen a few old remnants of buildings around here, like they're basically destroyed. You can see some foundations and so forth. This is an old road. You can see this old road base here from a long time ago as well. It's a very beautiful spot. And so what happened is the forestry people of Indonesia, obviously that all transferred to the government control when independence happened in 1945, and the forestry people only recently decided, you know what, this place should be open to the public rather than just kept as a forestry site. So they opened it up for the public to come here in 2018. And isn't it just wonderful? Wonderful. This is just part of the story of how the Dutch were so deeply ingrained into Indonesia. They weren't just sort of like in a few cities around the country. They were everywhere. They were living as part of local society. Obviously they were more privileged because they held those powerful positions and positions of wealth, but they were still mingling out here. And the reason I sort of mention it in those terms is because sometimes we view things in a very black and white way, and that is that the Dutch were colonial oppressors, of course, which they were, but not each individual person was a bad person. There were a lot of people here just living their lives. They were born here, and then they were born into a system which was oppressing the local population. But also, and there are real stories of people intermixing with one another. They'd go to the same schools together. They would be friends with one another. They'd be married to one another, have kids. And you'll see today in Indonesia, there's a lot of offspring of colonial people and the native people. It's quite interesting. That's sort of why I like to come to a lot of these old places which were from the colonial times, because it gives a deeper insight into actually how it was back in the day, which was a lot more nuanced and a lot more detailed than probably what we read about. I think you get a lot more of a feel for it when you come to a place like this. I guess the biggest problem about the whole colonial system for the Indonesians is that it was an apartheid system. You know, if you weren't of a particular coloured skin, you were excluded from all the benefits of being in a very rich, resource-rich country. And the local population, the native population, really did very poorly out of colonialism, which is terrible, terrible, terrible. But if you had the right coloured skin or were on the right side of society, you had all the benefits. And that's, I guess, why it changed in the end, because people just won't cop that any longer. If you look at these old buildings here, that looks to be part of the old colonial infrastructure. We're just having a bit of fun here because Susan can speak the tiniest bit of Mandarin because her long lost relatives came from China originally, like maybe more than 100 years ago. And there's some Chinese tourists here who I called Susan over, hey, interpret for me, but she said, oh, she can't. There's a guy named Andrew here. You live locally. Yeah. Whereabouts? What's local mean?
One of these trees. I live in one of these trees.
Oh, yeah. So you're one of like an ape man?
Yeah, I am. I've come down out of the trees.
You live in the local area, do you?
Yeah, I do.
What, Banyuwangi?
No, Serrano.
Really? Wow, that's real local.
I've been here probably 11 years.
What are you doing here? Not much?
I've got an Indonesian wife.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we're going to be on YouTube, guys.
Nice to meet you, mate.
Yeah, okay.
All right. It's amazing how you can meet people when you're out and about. This guy lives like real close. That's crazy, isn't it? The funny thing is that sometimes when you're traveling around, you think, geez, have these people seen too many foreigners around here? And then you bump into someone like Andrew, and of course they have. Andrew lives here and he's in the local area. They're seeing him every day, a bit like what it was like when I was in Bundung. Sometimes you'd go like a month without seeing another white guy. And then a couple of roads from where I lived, in a very sort of odd place, I was living close to another white guy, another 2 white guys. I hardly ever saw him. In fact, one of the guys I never saw, I just knew he lived there because the locals told me, oh yeah, there's an old German guy that lives there. So yeah, there's people everywhere embedded into Indonesian society. It's pretty cool. What a cool little place to come, a cool little tourist attraction. So it's about 10,000 to get into this thing for locals and people who live here. It costs about 20 if you're a foreigner, but whatever the case, it's hardly any money. A great little place. So if you're on a bit of a trip around Banyuwangi in East Java, this is certainly a place to come. Hey, you might even see Andrew around here as well, although I don't know how often he comes to this place. Probably not. He's probably sitting at home watching YouTube, watching Sanur Diaries. Okay, let's carry on this journey. Yang di sana. Sudah melihat. Asisten. Pak, yang berikutnya. All right, so we're actually on our way back to Bali right now. So I've been flying up that road from the Djawatan all the way up here to the ferry port and then onto the ferry. Jeez. Well, there's this dude selling sunglasses. Udah ada. Yang baru. Ya, enggak. Makasih ya. Yeah. And it's a beautiful view out here once again. We can see West Bali National Park looking beautiful over there. Not developed at all, West Bali National Park. And then obviously that is Gili Manuk over there, which is also part of Bali. And then in the far background, that's the other part of West Bali National Park where it gets quite mountainous. We're actually going to make a beeline from here straight back to our house in Sanur, maybe with a stopover in Medewi or Bali. I'm not sure yet. But I'm going to sort of wrap things up right here. And thanks for coming along for the ride through this Java trip. I've really enjoyed showing you around some of the things that I've enjoyed as well. Discovering a few new things, going on a bit of an adventure. It's just been really wonderful. I think getting away from Bali every now and then, even if you think it's paradise, is just a bit of an eye-opener really, and really quite grounding to remind you of what Indonesia really is like outside of Bali, because it is a different world in so many ways, and I just love it. It's where I really started to experience Indonesia on a deeper level. I love Java. I think I might actually do a bit more exploring in some places like Lombok as well. I think that could be quite interesting. Or maybe catch an aeroplane to places like Yogyakarta or Semarang, where I know I can fly to from Bali, and maybe some of you at home could follow along for some of those trips and perhaps copy them and do them yourselves, because they're not that difficult. We'll see. Over the next few months, we'll see how we go, and maybe we'll do a few more series like that. Let me know in the comments if you like them, or if you prefer the Bali content. I'm open to all sorts of suggestions. Thanks for coming along for the ride, and thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all things Sanur and the rest of Indonesia. I'll catch you next time, and sampai jumpa.